Figured I would do today the hashtag what's your craft tag. I wasn't tagged by anyone in particular, but this one seemed fun. It's been a long while since I did a tag video. I think I've only done one other one on my channel, possibly. It's been a bit. So I figured I'd go through this one, and it's a little bit of a more get to knowing me, since I've definitely gained quite a few subscribers in the last couple of months, so let's get to it. I will keep all the questions down below in the description if you also would want to do it. You don't need to be tagged, just have some fun with it. Go for it. So, I'm going to be reading them off my laptop here. Makes it easier. Number 1. When/how did you first know you were a witch? I really struggled with this. I think I probably always have been playing with the more magical stuff in my life, but it wasn't until I kind of had a really long sit down with my matron deity, Persephone, in a kind of like a weird relationship sense that I was able to take on the word witch fully. Probably around May, June-ish, I think, of last year. I really just sat down and was like, okay, fine, I'm a witch. Like, it was a really hard word for me to kind of take on in some sense. It was not something that I was just like, yeah, I do the things. Like, I could do all the things, but I didn't want to take that word on because I felt like it meant something odd or off in some way. I don't know. It was very weird, but yeah, so I took on the word probably right when I met my matron for the first time. Number 2, how long have you been practicing? I consider my anointing kind of along with this channel in a sense, because I'd done a dedication ceremony to Persephone. But that was like, I think, late June of last year, so almost a year now at this point. But it's been pretty slow. Yeah, I'm still very new. Baby witch, infant witch, toddler witch, whatever you want to use. That's me. What kind of witch are you? I think I would consider myself an eclectic Wiccan, just because I do very much subscribe to the harm none aspect, even though I question it constantly all the time, as people have seen in my many rambles. But yeah, no, I'm pretty much an eclectic Wiccan. All these other definitions with it, I don't really feel the need to take on those labels in any way, shape, or form. Like, I'm not a Grey Witch or this witch or whatever witch. Maybe those work for you. For me, eclectic Wiccan works just fine. What kind of path tradition do you follow? I think that's kind of also it. And I'm an eclectic Wiccan. And I definitely like to pick and take a few things here or there and what works best and well for me. I think that's just the reason I'm enjoying the solitary life, because there's not really one to report to say whether or not I'm doing things correctly. I didn't like that stuff in other organized religion senses, so yeah, eclectic Wiccan. Is your craft devotional or secular? How do you incorporate faith into your craft, if you do? It is devotional in a sense. I am very iffy about what in the world happens after all this. I'm kind of the sense of that the witchcraft is great because it allows me to play, it allows me to experiment and see if some of my hypotheses about how the universe actually operates are true. But overall, I really am just of the mind that I will see what happens when I get there. I like playing with the idea that, hey, there's probably other dimensions and other realities, and we may or may not be able to tap into those, or move on to something greater when we die, or may have a rebirth situation. Who really knows? I'm not actually too worried about those answers, about what happens after, or if there is something beyond me. I'm kind of always just straddling that line of maybe there is, maybe there isn't, and whatever works for me in the moment, I'll use, and then when I get to the big moment of, yeah, you did now, figure it out, that's when I'll find out. Are you a closeted witch or in the open? If so, how do your friends, family feel about your path? I'm kind of a bit of both, in a sense, I guess. I am definitely not out at work or too much in my everyday life. There are definitely friends of mine that have no freaking idea. Not necessarily because I'm keeping it from them, in some sense I'm like not screaming it from the rooftops, but my immediate family know I'm a witch. They know I have an altar in my room. Close family friends know that it's something that I practice and I operate with. Some think it's kind of crazy. Some people are like, okay, that's a thing you do. Sure, why not? And they pretty much feel it's, everyone that I know is either like very like, spirituality's whatever. And other people are very like, oh, spirituality is something to be explored anyway, so if that's what you're gonna do, that's what you're gonna do. Have fun with it. I have a very open family in that respect. Other family members of mine who are not as open do not know about it at all. And one day I'll have that conversation, but as of right now, I don't feel drawn necessarily to bring them in on it. Are you solitary or do you have a coven? Very solitary. Very, very, very solitary. I considered joining a coven after I took a Wicca 101 class, but quite honestly, with the amount I wish to move and everything else, maybe if I'm in a more stable part of my life, I might want to adapt coven work into something and join and have a more like close-knit spiritual group. But as of right now, that's not really my thing. No, pretty much happy being a solitary person. What is something you wish someone had told you, or something you wish you knew when you had first started? So many things. I could do a whole video just on that. Number one is, I think that just because you are, maybe it's your first time exploring the craft, or maybe it's the first time that you're taking on the word witch, you don't have to disregard everything that was previous to this. You don't have to, if you came from like the Christian faith or the Islamic faith or the Jewish faith, because you know a lot of people transfer over, they aren't born into witchcraft or born into paganism per se. If you are transitioning in, everything that happened previously, if you consider a religious moment or a very spiritual thing, doesn't have to be disregarded. It could be just that, hey, maybe it was just the environment you were in wasn't allowing you to really explore that to its fullest. I don't think that you can say like, oh, I started this time specifically. I use it just because I want everyone to be very aware on this channel that I am new and I'm exploring, and I have no problem owning that newness, but I'm also not going to entirely disregard my previous experience with things. I've been looking at tarot a lot longer than this 1 year. I have been exploring spirituality as a whole a lot longer than just this 1 year. Like, I'm just viewing it under the lens of witchcraft within this 1 year. That is what is new and different in a sense. So don't disregard your previous spiritual experiences just because you have decided to take on the pagan or the Wiccan or the witch term now. It doesn't have to be that way. What resource was most valuable when you first beginning practice, and what about now? My most valuable resource is definitely YouTube when I started, just because, again, you Google any freaking question in a little search bar and poof, how do I do this spell? What is this? What is cauldron magic? How does that work? What do Wiccans celebrate? All of those questions are somewhere on this channel platform thing. Like, that's not a problem. Whether it's my channel or Harmony Nice's or, God, the thousands of other amazing witches out there in between through many different paths, boy or girl, does not freaking matter. Like, everyone is, there's so much information on this platform for you to explore and to use. Now, I think it's a mix and a trade-up between YouTube and then also just my own intuition. I've been really trying to lean into the inner knowledge that I already have, things that already come up for me, and really playing with that, as opposed to disregarding it in a certain sense for what was outside of myself. Your own intuition is extremely important, so having a good balance of, I get a lot of my information still from YouTube and from a variety of different witches. Probably where I get most of my most intriguing like breakthroughs and stuff is the conversations that we have on here. And then I have to link that in with my own intuition in a sense. What was your first spell and wasn't successful? My very, very first spell was, let's see, it was probably before I did the witch thing. So my first ever spell was a slight protection spell. I've done a variety of different spells. I've done some money spells, I've done some love spells, and they were all kind of just like haphazard. I wasn't that good at recording them, so I think my first spell was that little small protection spell. I was just like wanting to protect and anoint my altar and my space. And I think it worked pretty well. I definitely feel a connection, but it's definitely something I feel I have to constantly like recharge and redo, and it wasn't something I necessarily saw an immediate effect on the outside of my life. The first spell I saw an effect on my life, was it the money spell or was it, I can't remember which one it was, but either or, I definitely saw a result. It wasn't the exact result I was hoping for or expecting, but I definitely saw a result come out of the spells I was doing. Once I had kind of like put a little more oomph and like really like done them in sacred space, like we're gonna do this now thing, which was nice. I definitely have some spells have not worked out though. What do you do when you feel out of touch with your craft? I rearrange my altar. That has become like a staple for when things are just not working out for me in any sense of the word. Sometimes if I'm not spending time at this altar because I've set up this space, because I've taken the time to let my intuition sink into it, if I'm not taking time to charge up the things on this altar, if I'm not sitting here on a regular basis, I'm trying to do it every morning now. It's like a new habit that I've put in. It's really helped me remain connected to the craft. So if I am not sitting time at my altar, or if I'm just like not feeling connected to it, then I rearrange the stuff on my altar. Although it hasn't happened all that often, and again, I only have about this year, but other times when I've been disconnected with my spirituality, a lot of times is because I let it go to the wayside. I don't let it be an important, everyday kind of habit thing that needs to be maintained. So that's really helps me, is when I built in a good habit that keeps me going. Have you ever doubted your faith or your ability? All the damn time. Like, I'm sorry, anyone else, like, suddenly do something, like you're putting stuff into a cauldron and burning it and you feel a little crazy? Like, you're like, I'm just burning herbs and hoping for the best here. Like, oh. I doubt it all the time. I don't think doubt necessarily has to be separated from what we're doing. I definitely think you have to kind of control it. You can't let it overwhelm you. But doubt is a healthy, normal thing. No one absolutely knows for sure if any of this stuff 100% works, or even your way of doing it will 100% work. Like, there's 20,000 different variables and things science hasn't figured out, and no one's really seen what happens to us after we die. So yeah, I doubt stuff all the time, and that's fine. Doubt is healthy. I don't think you have to have blind faith in order to conduct spells and do it properly, and even believe in your own power. I think it's an ever-growing, constant thing. What is some grounding techniques that you find work for you? Putting my feet on bare earth, which is something that comes harder as it gets hotter here in Arizona, but that is definitely something where I'm like, I don't remember like the last time my feet have touched some grass or the ground. Or also, I don't know, it's a very grounding thing, is just, I think, holding crystals in my palm and taking notice of sensations around me, remembering how the ground actually feels underneath me, even if it's just a floor, or remembering the sensations my body is picking up on just being in a normal environment, feeling the air conditioning right now on my skin, feeling stuff. That's really grounding to me. It brings me back into this setup and what is happening within this conscious reality, I guess. What's your biggest pet peeve in the magical community? My biggest pet peeve is people judging other people's crafts from the small bit that they glean on social media. You looking at somebody and seeing stuff and going, you know what you do, I don't like that, and it is not for me. That's perfectly fine. But when people go on and try to say this or that, or you're sounding like this, or you're not a real Wiccan, or you're not a real this, or whatever, I just think it's very ignorant, because you don't know what the rest of their life is. Like, even as much as we put online and on social media and expose ourselves to multiple things, you're not seeing their everyday. They don't have someone following them around with a little drone camera showing you everything they do in their craft. And even beyond that, you're not in their mind. You don't see their associations with everything. If this thing is supposed to be so personal and so customizable to the witch, then you can't really judge all that harshly. I think so many people want to kind of step out and say, like, oh, you're not this or you're not that, or blah, 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 blah. Which definitely has a place, and you need to call some shit out in the community at times. But I think if people kind of stayed in their own lane maybe a little bit more and just had a discussion about how it relates to their own path, as opposed to saying, like, why are you doing that? That's stupid. Things would just be a lot better in the community, I guess you could say. What is your biggest spell disaster? Well, I tried to make a magical ink that would help to imbue spells, and it molded over. Like, it smelled disgusting. And thankfully I hadn't put, like, I did it like a whole, like, it's gonna, like, build up under the full moon, and it's all my herbs and my ashes from my cauldron, it's gonna be a big powerful thing. And then I just apparently forgot about it, and yeah, it molded over. So I kind of felt like I just had to kind of throw all that magic out there as opposed to using that ink, but yeah. I haven't really had any other major spell backfires other than that I can... What's your view on black magic? I don't believe it exists. If you want to call it darker or lighter magic, then cool. Like, I see a sense with the light and the dark as descriptors, but I don't have this, like, the traditional idea of black magic being evil and dark and don't touch and don't go near it. Like, that's the bad stuff. That's the hexes and the curses. Like, hey, go there if you freaking want. That's your decision. It's your choice. It's more about what the witch chooses to do with their magic that matters. I don't really think that there's stuff that's bad or stuff that's good. It's all about just what is your intention putting out there that will make whether or not the magic has a positive or negative result for the consensus reality at large. Is witchcraft an everyday thing or only for special occasions? I used to try to make it as most practical as possible. I want it to be a very integral part of my lifestyle. I definitely see the point in having, like, big special occasions and taking a moment to slow down and, you know, having grand rituals and things like that. But I have found the biggest benefit comes from the everyday, at least for me in my personal path. When I do grandiose rituals, I did one on Samhain, I did one on the eclipse. I had a whole big ritual with that, but Mostly, I don't really do giant, like most of my craft is that everyday stuff, is that sitting at my altar, taking time with my deities, exploring things, doing a little spell here or there to charge up something type of deal. It is not really about the grandiose stuff, but that's just what works best for me. Do you meditate all the damn time? I try to as much as possible, and for me, meditation is just to take stock of what is currently happening in this reality, to take a minute and really ground yourself. That is what I use meditation for, not so much as to clear my mind, but as to remember where the hell I'm at in the current moment, and to kind of get all that other future, past, present, other dimensional, whatever nonsense out of my brain for a minute, and just take in what is currently happening in the now. So yeah, I do that as much as I possibly can. Do you practice divination? If so, what techniques? Yes, I do a ton of tarot. I'm now just getting into the daily draw thing, but I also have recently purchased, a couple months ago, was a selenite crystal ball. So I've been doing a lot of scrying and stuff with that, trying to get some visions and seeing what I can pick up. And I also love just scrying with smoke in general from fire. That really helps me out. I do just like to light candles and kind of just like zone out to them in the morning and see what things come up. Moon phases, planetary correspondences, day of the week, hour, irrelevant or key? I think they are relevant to a point. I think that there are enough things that do put out energies into this world, and you cannot totally ignore the energies that are happening around you, but it is up to you how you use them. You can take in the energy that is around you and then recycle it into whatever form or will you want to, based on what you're feeling in the moment. So like, yeah, I definitely take heed of them. I look at the full moon, the new moon, what's going on with the planets. It's stuff I take notice of as I'm looking more and more into astrology, but they don't rule over my life. I'm not going to not sign a contract because Mercury's in retrograde type of deal. I'm just going to take it into higher consideration whether or not all the details in that contract are good. Spell language. Do you like it simple? Do you dress it up? Is it poetry? Is it silent? A bit of both. Sometimes I get really flouncy with the language. Other times I am very like, give me the money, please. Light candle, done. Sometimes I don't speak at all. Sometimes it is literally just me feeling like pushing my energy and my will through just feeling into something and envisioning it in my mind. And that's like the extent of the spell. Do you keep a book of shadows and a grimoire? Yes, I do. I keep a mirror book for me, which is my constant spiritual reflection. I'm constantly writing in there as much as possible, just taking notes of things happening, so I can look back and see what works and what didn't, and then my long-term stuff where I'm like, that was important, or that is something to take note of, or something I want to pass on or reread all the time. I recopy into a grimoire that I keep that is very more of my permanent book that will carry, I feel like, a longer period of time, whereas the mirror book I kind of just like, it's just the purging aspect to reflect on and then either copy, or when it's finally filled up, I'll burn all the pages and move on. Do you have an altar? Is it dedicated to any specific deity, season, anything? I do have an altar. It's pretty much just dedicated to my craft in a sense. I did do a whole like ceremony about blessing it and having it being like a thing that I do stuff at. And there is, in a sense, I feel it's kind of divided between my matron and my patron. There's definitely a little more of a chaotic element on one side, and there's more of like a flousy, flowery, with a little bit of grit into darkness on another. And it just balances out well for me in that sense. But overall, it's just dedicating my craft. It's not so much dedicated to a specific thing. It's just more of like dedicated to me. Thoughts on the afterlife? Figure it out when I get there. Maybe it's dimensions, maybe we all die, I don't really know. Figure it out when I get there. That's pretty much how I roll with that type of thing now. Would you teach practice witchcraft to your children? I would. I am of the understanding that just because you witness and can see what mommy does, doesn't mean that you can also find your own thing. My parents definitely do their own thing with kind of having spiritual faith, kind of not. We sometimes went to church, sometimes didn't when my mom was tired of them giving a basket around for coins all the time. Like, it was a very, like, just figure out what your stuff is. Like, you don't have to worry about what's what, what's this, and what's not. It was just do it. So they can see me act, if they ask questions, I can show them, I'll teach them if they're interested, but their spiritual journey is their journey, so I'm not gonna, like, force them into being a pagan, per se, but if you're interested in what mommy's doing, I'm gonna tell you. I'm not gonna hide it. Do you have a totem animal? If so, what is it? I don't know so much about I've had animal guides per se before. I've definitely had foxes were a big thing for me, snakes were a big thing for me, and crows have all been big things for me. They still, if every time I see a crow, I'm just kind of like, it just gives me a little happiness on the inside. When it comes to currently, if you've watched any of my previous videos, I have a thing with a crocodile going on right now, but I'm not so sure if it's a guide in the basic like animal totem sense, or it might be a deity, maybe something more. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just kind of feeling in with it and going with the flow, because every time I try to ask the crocodile a direct question, I'm not getting much of an answer. What are some witch books that have influenced you? Definitely the Solitary Practitioner's Guide, the Scott Cunningham book, that definitely helps. The Witch's Bible was great. I am all about, where is it? The Black Arts by Richard Cavendish has been, I'm still trying to get through the damn thing, clearly. I have a swim cap there for right now. This book is fantastic just for references in general. But mostly the biggest references have just been my own instincts and picking up on stuff that I like and what I don't like. Tools. Handmade, natural materials only my will. Anything works if I want to use it. I'm of the mind that anything works if you want to use it. You put the oomph into the tool. I definitely have a feeling, at least for my craft, that I do like to buy certain things, but mostly if I can hand make it, I try to do that. Something about like the act of creation, since I'm an artist, is very like, that is sacred to me, so doing it kind of helps to build up a certain sense of magic into a tool or an item, which I like and enjoy, but other times I'm a little more like, yeah, I just want to pick it up and buy it for convenience sake. I'm kind of wishy-washy on that. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. But definitely you can definitely just use your own will with it. I don't think you need these tools at all. You could be butt-ass naked in the woods and that's all you fucking need to do some witchcraft. You really don't need much of anything else. Do you have a magical name? This channel is named Shadow Harvest, but I don't really take it on as my name so much as it's just the channel name. I like the idea of looking into the shadows of what the rest of culture deems like shadowy or dark or creepy. But it's fun. It's fun to pick it up and see what you can do with it. So that's where I kind of came up with the idea of Shadow Harvest. But I'm Sam. That's my name. That's what you can call me. If you message me, you can call me Shadow Harvest. You cannot, because people just kind of call people by their channel names all the time anyway. But I wouldn't consider it a magical name per se. I think my name is perfectly fine. That's not something necessarily that I want to take on into my own personal path. Favorite season: herb, crystal, rune, tarot card, sigil, and sign. All of the favorites. Favorite season: fall, autumn. Like, I love it. You can't beat it. It's cool. It's chilly. The colors are changing. I'm all about it. It just feels, perfect. Favorite herb is, I really love jasmine flowers. Using those in spells. It was probably the first elixir I'd ever used as jasmine flowers, so I'm really vibing with that. I also adore lavender. Crystals and rune. Crystals, clear quartz all the way. Yes, because you can do anything with it. And other than that, yeah. Lavender I really am kind of obsessed with as well. I'm feeling, especially with my crocodile thing, someone had mentioned in my comments below to something about this being connected with a crocodile in some sense. So just like, that's interesting. So I've always been drawn to this crystal, so that might be something as well, but mostly it's clear quartz I'm all about. All the others are just kind of add-ons beyond that. And then rune, I'm just now starting to really get into the runes. So I don't really feel the need to comment on like a favorite per se, because I'm really interested in all the sacred symbols and the magic symbology and the real oomph behind those symbols and what they mean, because I think there's a lot of power there. So I haven't really dived into them entirely. Favorite tarot card? I don't know. Wheel of Fortune, I think, always brings up really interesting stuff for me. I always love exploring that card. Every time I see it, no matter the deck I see it in, it just, something about it triggers a little like, ooh, that's something interesting to look into. Favorite symbol or sigil? I make a lot of my own symbols and sigils. I have some that I've made for specifically Persephone that I really enjoy just seeing all the time. And there's also a symbol that I put on my lovely skull that represents a little entity in me's bond. I'm all about that one as well, but that was kind of like just a custom random doodle in a meditative moment I drew up as he was kind of like whispering in my ear what to do, what not to do. So I believe that is all of the questions. There are 30. This is a long video. But hope you guys like it. I will put the questions all down below if you would like to do the tag. Thank you oh so much to, I believe, Ashley and the Island Alien, who decided to come up with this video set of questions. It's kind of an awesome tag. I'm all about it. you guys go do it if you want to do it. I make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can find me on all the social medias at Shadow Harvest, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.